Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of my YouTube channel entitled Jim's 5am Club. It's a beautiful morning. The clouds have blown away. Hopefully the rain has been put at ease with all the flooding that we've had over the past couple of weeks or month or so. As you can see, it's pre-dawn, and hopefully the start of a wonderful Sydney autumn day. I can tell you that the temperature is dropping, and you can tell that autumn is here. It's a bit of a chill in the air, and life is good. Life is good. I need to ask you a favour. My YouTube channel has 99 subscribers at this point in time, and I want to get it to 1,000. But before I get it to 1,000, I need to get one more person to subscribe to get me to 100 subscribers, which is well in advance to what I thought I'd ever been able to generate over time. But I am thankful, and progress has been slow, but I have been progressing. I guess the key message is that we just need to keep on going. We just need to keep on pumping out content. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm probably one of the world's most prolific vloggers on personal development material, such as book summaries, experiences, and empowering material. So to those who have been on the journey, thank you very much. And I look forward to your feedback. I don't get very many likes, I don't get very many views. But once again, as I said, the philosophy of Jim's 5am Club is not for me to judge my work, but for those who listen to it to be able to get something from it, as much hopefully as what I'm getting from it. Because my philosophy in life is that I try and grow and develop and learn something new every day, try and practice something new every day as well. So it's not about just having the knowledge, it's about having and applying that knowledge and leveraging that knowledge. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is to kick off today's book summary, which is entitled Mastery by George Leonard. A very, very powerful, very, very useful topic. And it has some lessons here that are quite comforting, quite nurturing, and quite eye-opening, profound in fact, that we need to understand how mastery works, how life works, and to realise that most of our time will be spent on a plateau. We will have short periods, short bursts of progress, but as we said, many hours, many days of having to deal with periods of plateau. So the author kicks off the book with this very point, where he says that all significant learning is composed of brief bursts of progress followed by long periods of work where it feels like you are stuck in a plateau, where you feel that you're absolutely going nowhere and achieving nothing. But what the author is saying here is that that is the norm. If you feel like that, then you're on the right track, because that's how life works. You just don't continue to grow and develop. You grow in a short burst, you plateau for a while, you grow again, you plateau. So everything happens in a particular step formation, and we need to understand that. And the number of small steps that you take on, the better off you're going to be in terms of growing and developing and getting where you need to be. I learnt years ago, and Anthony Robbins made this point, that people tend to overestimate what they can do in 1 year and yet completely underestimate what they can achieve in 10. So it's important to be able to take that into consideration and use that to your benefit. Use that knowledge to your benefit, knowing very well that everything is possible if you give it enough time and if you give it enough effort. You just need to stick it out. You just need to show up, as a lot of people say, because your skills will grow in a compound way, where one adds to the other, and before you know it, you are taking giant leaps, or what appears to be a giant leap compared to what you're able to do previously. So a beautiful, beautiful morning indeed. So what else can we learn from this book? The author here talks about mastery, and he says that mastery is difficult. It's not easy, but it's a process where we progressively improve, and it does get easier. So everything starts off hard, everything starts off as a challenge, and everything is frustrating when you first start, thinking that you're not going to be able to cope when you're not going to be able to do it. I remember when I started martial arts, for example, I was clumsy, I couldn't punch properly, I couldn't block, I couldn't coordinate. The same thing happened when I was doing opposize. You know, when you're learning how to dance, you know, your feet get in the way, you're out of rhythm. But what you realise is, if you stick to it long enough, sooner or later, you will pick it up, it'll click. Things will fall into place, and you'll be able to then enjoy the fruits of your hard labour, and you will have mastered something that you thought was impossible. And what happens is, as the author says, is that first it's difficult, then it gets progressively easier, then it becomes an absolute pleasure because you don't have to think about it, and it just happens. You know, the music starts, the body moves, you're in a class, the kicks start, the punches start, and everything seems to flow and happen quite pleasurably, as the author says. The author then talks about the fact that we all have intelligence, and intelligence comes in many different forms. You know, I thought intelligence was just, you know, being smart, but the author here quite cleverly breaks it down into different disciplines. There are different types of intelligence, and they're basically broken up into linguistic, musical, logical or mathematical, spatial, bodily or kinesthetic, intrapersonal and interpersonal. So people can be really, really good and be able to master one specific intelligence and leverage one specific intelligence, but others are much more gifted and are able to harness the energy and the power of being able to bring together a number of different intelligences. You know, so most people are good at something. It's important to understand what you're good at, what you're naturally good at, and what the author here is saying is that these things are natural intelligence things that can be genetic. You know, you can be born into a family of athletes. You can be born into a family of musicians. You know, you can be born into people who are really good with language. People who are very, very spiritual, who have great interpersonal skills or intrapersonal skills. A lot of this stuff, it's important to understand, is genetic. So God gives us the building blocks. God gives us the gifts for us to hone, to build, to shape. And you know, it's up to each and every one of us to make the most of these gifts of intelligence and to leverage them in a way which is God-serving, which is God-pleasing, and can serve and help others around us. Because our purpose in life is to serve God according to our Christian beliefs, and to serve each other and to help each other we use our experience, we use our money, not for our selfish indulgences, but to use it to help and make other people's lives better and more comfortable. The author here talks about the fact that as humans we stand out. We stand out in the animal kingdom from all the other animals based on our intelligences, our ability to have a rational soul, our ability to have a larger brain compared to our body size. And I learned something new here as well, that humans, believe it or not, are the greatest animal in the world when it comes to endurance running. We can basically outdo all other animals when it comes to endurance in terms of running a long way and doing things over and over and over again for longer bursts than what other animals are able to do it. So once again, our ability to stick to things, our ability to have a certain level of OCD, which enables us to maintain focus for a long period of time, is one of those advantages that we have, and some people have it in great forms, or great doses, I should say. So the author here says that we need to use our strengths, we need to use our intelligence, and to strive to attain a new and higher level of competence. We need to be comfortable at working hard and working over long periods of time, to have endurance in what we do, because that endurance is what's going to get us to a point of supreme mastery. Now, you can't have a poor work ethic. You can't have a poor work ethic and expect to be a champion, expect to be a leader in any field. So the author here says that we need to be comfortable with work, and we need to be comfortable with practicing over and over again, and practicing in a meaningful, productive way. And we need to be comfortable as well as at being in a plateau and not giving up and just sticking it out for as long as we can. So a very powerful lesson here, especially for young people, for young students, anybody embarking on a career who needs to turn up day after day, to know that the plateau is your friend. The plateau is the lonely place that you're going to be for most of the time, and you need to stick it out. You need to understand that if you're in a plateau and you continue to work and work hard and to work progressively with practice and look for incremental gains, constant and never-ending improvements, then sooner or later you're going to have a burst of progress which will take you to another level, which you will once again plateau out, and you need to remain consistent and practice. I remember years ago hearing Greg Norman talk about golf, and he said, and it was quite powerful and quite profound, he says, I practice hard to become number one. And when I become number one, I need to practice even harder to stay at number one. So golfers, as an example, are people who just need to continue to practice. Life is not beer and Skittles. You don't get to a level of excellence and then take your foot off the accelerator and coast and hope to remain number one and hope to continue to be a world champion or to continue to be the CEO of a major corporation, unless you're continually working hard and staying at the top of your game. So we need to accept and embrace plateauing and to have it as our number one friend. And the author here says something interesting. Don't practice for a result, practice for practice sake. just continue to do your drills. I remember doing martial arts, and martial arts is all about doing the same drills over and over and over again until they become automatic, until they become subconscious, where you don't have to think about it at all. And for many people, they'll start, they'll love it. They'll get to their green belt, they'll get to their brown belt, but most people give it up because they can't handle the repetition. It gets boring, it gets monotonous. But there is the secret. There is the secret of mastery. You just need to stay there. You just need to continue to do it over and over again. And by doing it over and over again, by showing up week after week, year after year, you'll achieve your black belt, your first dan, your second dan, and eventually become a master in your field. So it's all about, as we said, turning up and continue to practice and have the faith to continue, even though it feels like you're going nowhere. Similarly to faith, for those of us who are Christians, we often pray to God to help us with our lack of faith, because there are times where you just lose faith. You lose faith. You lose faith in the world. You lose faith in the church. You lose faith in yourself. You lose faith in your family and everybody. But it's important to keep that faith going, to keep your practice, because sooner or later, the results and the fruits of your labour and the fruits of your faith will materialise in more ways than one. So the important thing here is that we need to not only help ourselves, but we need to help those around us. And for that reason, many of us get married and stay married. And as Yeron Nektarios, a vlog priest in Greece, says, being a priest is hard, but being married is even harder. These relationships that we have with God, the relationships that we have with our partners, our spouses, are salvific. The relationships that we have with our children are salvific because they lead us to salvation. The sacrifice that we do, the sacrifice that we offer for our partners through love, for our children, are the sort of things that teach us God's love, God's unconditional love, to be able to love people, to love humanity, even though we are sometimes unloving and not worthy of love. Unconditional love is the love that you express, and it's God's love. And that's why we get married, that's why we have children, to learn God's love and in order to appreciate God's love. So the author here says that relationships need the two to grow, and the two to challenge each other to grow and develop, else we end up in different places. That's why it's important, it's critical for each and every one of us to stay connected to our partners, to understand their needs, their hopes, their dreams, and to work together, knowing that we're growing at different rates, we're at different levels of plateau. One person will surge to another level, the other one will be on a plateau, which may take longer for them to then have a burst of progress again and again. But as my spiritual father always tells me, don't judge other people, because they may end up being better and greater Christians than what you are. Focus on yourself, help others where you can, but don't judge them, because you don't know how many bursts they're going to have and how quickly they're going to break through and grow through their particular plateau that they're currently experiencing. The author then goes on to talk about money, and he says that every time we spend our money, we are making a statement and we indicate to the world what we value most. So for those who are blowing their money on cars, on expensive labels, watches, all the material things in the world. Just understand that you're on notice, that you're basically saying to the world what you value most, and to refocus where possible on family, on friends, on community, on religion and community, and doing the things, as we said, to serve others rather than to serve our own selfish interests, which are unfathomable. The author also talks about here that there are things such as anti-mastery. If you lead a life, an indulgent life, and end up needing a heart surgeon to perform surgery on you, now that's a quick fix. Heart surgery is a quick fix, whereas diet and exercise, when applied throughout your life, would have put you in a position where you may not, I'm not saying you would not, but where you may not have needed surgery. So we need to be proactive as well in what we do in life, so that we don't end up into a trap and a prison of anti-mastery, where we need people to solve our problems that we've gotten ourselves into by not being diligent, not being observant of the things we need to do to master our lives. We have to understand also, this is an important point, that there's no immediate windfall result in mastery. It takes time. You need to understand that you need to invest. You need to sow your seeds before you can harvest. You need to wait, and life has its seasons. You can't expect it all to come at the one time, at the drop of a hat. And that's why my parents, my grandparents, previous generations of new Australians who came to this country understood the law of the land. They understood the seasons, that you need to work. You need to plough the fields before you sow the seed. You need to water, you need to fertilise. You need to wait for the right time. You need to tend, you need to prune, you need to do lots of things to your fields before you can ever hope to harvest the fruits of your labours. And that fruit may not come every year. You may have a storm, you may have a flood. We've had examples of those things just recently with all the floods. But to understand that if you go through the process, if you put in the effort, the time, and you follow the time-tested recipes, that sooner or later you will achieve the wonderful outcomes that you deserve. So the author then goes on to say it's best to learn from a master the skills in the first place. And to find a good master, a good teacher, you need to look at the students, which is a powerful thing, because the students will tell you who the good teachers are. And a good teacher will tell you what you're doing right, but also tell you what you're doing wrong. We need to achieve a thing called a mastery mindset, where we have a willingness to work, and also know that our willingness to work is not enough. You also need to have the abilities and capabilities and genetic background to enable you to do certain things, because we're all designed to a certain extent. We're all gifted, as we said before, through God's gifts, to be able to do things a little bit better than what other people do. So masters love to practice. They love to master the game, because mastering the game means that they are a master of practice. Having dinner every night is a form of practice, and it leads to mastery. We need to understand that all of us have a thing called homeostasis, which is our thermostat, where we can't over-deliver and we can't underperform our self-image. So all of us have a level of equilibrium that we need to understand that works in the background, and we need to try and break through it by just leaning outside our comfort zone to enable us to grow and develop, but knowing that regardless of how much you lean outside your comfort zone, you will be trapped in a plateau for a certain period of time. So we need to understand and leverage and use that plateau is the bottom line, and to know that there will be resistance. When we're trying to lose weight, we will encounter resistance, but we need to keep on sticking to our diet plan, because that resistance will dissipate, will leave. You may be stuck on the same weight for a week or so, or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden drop a kilo overnight and wonder how that actually happened. But these are the secrets that this book puts forward and basically teaches us to know that there is a homeostasis, and there's a speed of change, and everything happens differently for different people. But mastery is not about being perfect, and this is the key point that comes from this book here, the last point that I'll talk about. And Marie Forleo talks about this as well in her book, Everything is Figure-outable. The key in life is not to be perfect, because wiring yourself up for perfection is leading yourself and wiring yourself up for tremendous pain. What we need to do is to wire ourselves up for progress, knowing that we're going to have short bursts of improvement, as we said before, and long periods of basically being on the same level. And in some cases we may even fall back, but we mustn't lose sight, mustn't lose hope, and just to stick to it, keep at it, and the results will flow our way. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I think this one here is 1304, a remarkable number of vlogs over the past 1.5 years. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode on my YouTube channel entitled Jim's 5am Club. As I said, I have 99 subscribers, and I want to get to 1,000. But before I get to 1,000, I need to get to number 100. So I encourage you, I welcome you, I ask you to be the next subscriber. So click on subscribe, click on the bell, and we'll see where this leads us. But there is a huge amount of material in my blog channel, my YouTube channel. It's all about personal development, it's all about mastery, it's all about peak performance achievement, where we use OPE, other people's experience, in the form of book summaries that I take. And what I do is I walk and talk, and I showcase the beauty of this country, this land that we live in. So a lot of my vlogs are done down here in Sydney, down at Sydney Harbour, because I get up half an hour earlier every day. I come down to the city, I get off the train and come out here, do my vlog, and then continue on my way back to work. So Yassas, take care, sign up, become a subscriber to Jim's 5am Club, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.